As this video will be a bit long, I want to give you the TLDR first. Both the Anker Nebula 4K and the XGIMI Horizon Pro are solid projectors, but even though the Anker has a slight advantage when it comes to peak brightness, the Horizon Pro delivers considerably better colors. Both use the same DMD chip, so the overall details is the same. But then again, when it comes to usability, the Horizon Pro pulls ahead for me due to having more than one HDMI port, a better Google TV experience, better focus or keystone adjustments, and better obstacle avoidance. So in my opinion, for the price they are sold at, the XGIMI is the better option. When it comes to premium and smart projectors, there are especially two contenders fighting hard for the spot in your living room: the Anker Nebula 4K and the XGIMI Horizon Pro. I love with the Horizon Pro for the last bit, and so I was really curious to see if the Anker gives me any benefit that would justify the higher price tag. But let's start with the basic info. Both are 4K Android TV smart projectors. The LED powered Horizon Pro with a brightness of 2200 ANSI lumens, and the laser powered Nebula 4K with 2400 ISO lumens. In case you're unfamiliar with the differences, we can't just compare those numbers because even though both brightness values are measured in lumens, there is a considerable difference between the measurement techniques. Long story short, we will need to see how they stack up in our testing. Lastly, the Anker comes in at roughly $2,200 while the Horizon Pro is quite a bit cheaper at $1,900. Both projectors have an aluminum body, a 3/4 mount at the bottom and buttons on the top. Additionally, the Anker has this nice handle that comes in handy when you move it around frequently. The build quality of the XGIMI remote feels quite nice being made out of aluminum. The Anker feels quite cheap in comparison actually, being completely made out of plastic, but in return offers convenient shortcut buttons to the most popular streaming services. Looking at the back, we see more differences. The Anker has only one HDMI port, one USB port, and an aux output. In comparison, the XGIMI has two HDMI, two USB ports, an Ethernet port, and an optical audio out. Especially those HDMI ports are great because they allow you to connect two sources simultaneously. That's very handy if you don't want to change cables between the console and the Blu-ray player all the time, for example. With the basics out of the way, let's have a look at the most integral part: image quality. Both manufacturers claim a screen size of up to 150 inches. The tests here are conducted on a modest 100 to 120. Generally, both projectors show the same level of detail. The Nebula 4K has a slight advantage when it comes to peak brightness, but during my test, both projectors delivered an exceptional image from a brightness and contrast standpoint. For me personally, both are plenty bright to watch in the light-controlled environment of my living room. But even with some daylight coming in, both hold up pretty well. Though, I noticed something weird with the color reproduction from the Nebula. I even then tested the color accuracy, and it turns out the Nebula is less color accurate and also covers less of the potential color space. My suspicion is that the Anker is using a single color laser light. Means, as the name implies, instead of having a three-colored laser, like in high-end systems, they only have one color, for example blue, and subsequently alter it to get other colors as well. And it's not hard to imagine that altering one color to get all necessary channels results in less pure colors than just starting out with an RGB light source. And indeed, my test showed that the Anker seems to have less accurate colors. Furthermore, measuring the color gamut of the Horizon Pro, it covers 109% of the P3 color space, while the Nebula covers only 83.5%. And as you can see, especially in skin tones, but also sometimes in greenery of landscapes, they just seem a bit lifeless, to be honest. I prefer the colors of the Horizon Pro, but as color being something rather subjective, I would like to know what you think. I also wanted to check how well motion is handled by both projectors. Knowing my XGIMI very well, it has a function called MEMC that tries to reduce motion artifacts and make the viewing experience more smooth. I couldn't find any information about the Nebula being equipped with such a function, and judging both side by side, there are indeed some more stutters and artifacts in the image from the Nebula. Not to say the Horizon Pro is always perfect, but in my opinion, it has a slight advantage here for fast moving videos, sports watching, or video games, for example. Oh, and a quick side note. One thing I actually was surprised while using the Nebula was the noise level it had. This might be totally irrelevant to you, but in my setup, I'm quite literally sitting next to the projector. And apart from being a bit louder, it also sounds somewhat like a more silent fridge or something. I don't know if that's something just with my unit or generally a thing. So if you happen to have a Nebula 4K, please let me know. Lastly, let's have a look at the user experiences these projectors offer. Both projectors are equipped with functions such as automatic keystone correction, screen adaptation, and autofocus. On paper, those are all features I would expect from a device in this class. But if we take a closer look, substantial differences arise. The XGIMI needs around 5 to 6 seconds to adjust focus, while the Anker takes about twice as long. And even then, the Nebula missed for me focus 2 out of 3 times. It wasn't too far off, so it wasn't bad for the overall image, but it got distracting for me in UI elements and text in general. I don't know if the Anker just struggles with the surface I use, but the Horizon Pro doesn't seem to have this issue, so I don't know. Similarly to the faster focus, the Horizon Pro boots up faster, but only by a couple of seconds. Keystone adjustment is around about the same in terms of speed. On paper, the Horizon Pro has a slightly higher maximum angle that it can adjust for. In practice, this difference only shows in edge cases. So also here, both do a solid job. Additionally, both projectors claim to have intelligent functions for hassle-free screen adaptation. Means they find the edges of a screen and make automatic keystone adjustments accordingly. This works great on the Horizon Pro as it adjusts to the screen even in extreme cases. But for the Nebula, it was a hit or miss. A lot of times it just straight up doesn't find the edges and it completely ignores it. Only if you position the projector in a way that the edges of the screen are close to the borders of the projection, it is able to adjust the keystones correctly. On top of that, the XGIMI also detects obstacles in front of a screen, like plants or furniture, and avoids them in a similar fashion. The Anker unfortunately can't do that. But the Anker has a feature to lower brightness when it detects a person in front of a projector, which is great in my opinion, but does not always work reliably for me. And I managed to get some straight to the retina projection quite a few times. But there's an elephant in the room I didn't talk about yet. The dongle of the Anker Nebula. When I first started the Nebula up, I was surprised in not being greeted by a typical Android TV setup, but just a simple projector interface. Turns out, you have to install a dongle in the back of the projector before it becomes a smart projector. This mostly worked fine for me and it allows Anker to have Netflix natively, which is great. But there are 2 issues for me. The inputs from the remote feel laggy at times when switching between the projector menu and the Android menu. And secondly, I can't access exactly those projector-specific settings from the Chromecast user interface. I have to access the menu of the projector itself to adjust focus, keystone, etc. The XGIMI has a better solution in my opinion in this regard. Yeah, and a more well-rounded user experience. Summing up, in my opinion, both are great projectors that deliver outstanding image quality that most people will be very, very happy with. But considering the steep price difference of $300, the Anker doesn't really offer a great enough benefit over the XGIMI for me to justify the premium. And it even falls short when it comes to connectivity, colors, and user experience, in my opinion. The final decision whether you don't care about the shortcomings and whether the slight increase in brightness and native Netflix support is worth this kind of money to you, only yourself can answer. For my part, I would choose the Horizon Pro, and if need be, I could get the Apple TV 4K for $150, get all the benefits this offers, and still be cheaper than going with the Anker. That's it. I hope this video helped you to gain a better understanding of what the relative strengths and weaknesses are, but I'm really curious what you think and what features you value most when it comes to a smart projector. Let me know down in the comments below. I hope you're doing well, stay awesome, cheers.